Colorado's governor gets his pick for health secretary, an anti-vax activist RFK Jr. We'll look at what that means for Colorado's already struggling childhood vaccine rates. State legislators want more accountability from the Colorado Bureau of Investigation in return for millions of dollars in funding to fix a backlog in evidence testing.
It's been a year of waiting, and it's been really painful. It's like walking through a nightmare.
Turning an old school into a place where young people feel comfortable opening up about their struggles.
It's really spaces where emotions come out just organically.
That's tonight on Next.
Whether you are a contagious disease enthusiast or someone who would prefer not to see eradicated diseases make a comeback, today could be a crucial day in American history because the country's top health official is now an anti-vaccine activist, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. He is a key ally of President Trump, and he was endorsed by Colorado's Democratic Governor Jared Polis. With this state's child vaccination rates already among the worst in the nation, our Spencer Soisher looks at what could happen next.
On this vote, the yeas are 52, the nays are 48. The confirmation is confirmed.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is the new U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, the same Robert F. Kennedy Jr. who has said vaccines cause autism and the COVID vaccine was designed to control people with microchips.
It's really disheartening and really scary.
Public health experts worry about the influence Kennedy could now have over federal vaccine policy, including reducing the federal budget for vaccine purchases or development, and even defunding the CDC's Vaccines for Children program. Democrat State Senator Kyle Mullica is uniquely qualified on this subject. He's a legislator, but also an ER nurse.
We have scientists and experts in this area, and right now we have a guy that just got confirmed that wants to cut their budget.
In Colorado, vaccine hesitancy is already an issue. CDC data shows last school year, Colorado ranked 5th worst in kindergartners vaccinated for polio, less than 88%. 6th worst in diphtheria, tetanus, and whooping cough vaccinations, and 7th worst in measles vaccinations. In the meantime, Colorado is unlikely to add any new vaccine mandates. Polis has praised RFK for, quote, helping defeat vaccine mandates. Mullica says state legislators are looking at what they can do to combat any vaccine misinformation, and he's ruling out a mandate.
Yeah, we're in conversations right now of what that looks like. I think it's obviously making sure that we're doing all that we can around, combating the misinformation campaigns and putting facts out there and doing that community outreach, I think is the first step.
We reached out to the governor's office tonight for comment on the confirmation, but we haven't heard back. Just one Republican voted against Kennedy, Republican Senator Mitch McConnell, who cited his experience having polio as a child as his reason for voting against Kennedy.
So RFK has literally come to Colorado in the past to rally anti-vaxxers on some of these issues.
Yeah, and against one of his bills, too, a 2020 bill, he said that it would have been a vaccine mandate, but in reality, it was one that would have forced parents to watch a video about the dangers of not having your child vaccinated and not actually a vaccine mandate.
Before you actually
Before you opt out, yeah.
Yeah, all right, interesting. Spencer Soisher, thank you. Today, a federal court temporarily blocked President Trump's order restricting gender-affirming health care for transgender people under 19. Yet there are a couple of hospitals in Colorado that have already suspended those services preemptively to hold on to federal funding. Trump's executive order blocked federal funding for gender-affirming care for minors, including puberty blockers, hormone therapy, and surgery for older teenagers. That led UC Health to reverse their policy of allowing gender-affirming surgeries and hormone therapy for people 18 and older. Denver Health suspended its gender-affirming surgeries for people under the age of 19, a decision that the hospital acknowledged would increase the danger of depression, anxiety, and suicide for those young people. A federal judge in Maryland temporarily blocked Trump's order this afternoon, sided with families who said the abrupt ban on this care would disrupt their teenagers' health. That restraining order will last for 2 weeks while the issue works through the courts. Colorado's backlog of rape kits continues to grow. CBI says reviewing the work of a now discredited former analyst is taking so much of their time that they don't have time for those new cases. They're asking the state for additional money to help them send those kits to be tested elsewhere. Our Evan Krugel shows us how it would work.
Colorado is dealing with a major backlog when it comes to sex assault kits sitting on the shelf.
There are currently 1,407 sexual assault evidence kits in the backlog waiting to be tested.
That includes Jenny Wilford's.
One of those kits is mine.
The Democrat state rep from North Glen is suing Lyft. after she says a driver made unwanted sexual advances and assaulted her in February of last year.
It's been a year of waiting, and it's been really painful. It's like walking through a nightmare.
Wilford's kit hasn't been tested yet because CBI has a backlog, caused in part by former DNA scientist Missy Woods, who's facing more than 100 charges for reportedly manipulating data. CBI says it spent roughly half its staff time last year reviewing Woods' work.
To be at a place where our backlog is 529 days right now is absolutely unacceptable.
State lawmakers gave CBI $3 million to go through those old cases, but the agency has only spent about $100,000 of that because they've only had 14 requests for retests from district attorneys so far. CBI is now asking Wilford and other legislators to roll over some of that unused money to pay private labs in other states to test some of the kits in the general backlog.
So we know that they will be able to clear the backlog with this money.
Wilford is proposing legislation that would pay for that testing, but only if CBI meets other guidelines too, including a public-facing dashboard and a monthly update to the General Assembly on backlog numbers.
We can't wait and hope that they are doing their jobs and the testing is going well. We need to keep our eye on the prize. We need to keep their feet to the fire and make sure that these kits are getting tested.
Now, that amendment to roll over the money passed through the House today. It now moves on to the Senate for discussion. CBI believes if they get this funding, they could send out about 1,000 of those kits for testing in 1 year. Kyle, that would significantly reduce that backlog.
When we talk about a wait time, right, we've talked about wait times on these kits. My goodness, it feels like for a decade. But what is it now?
Yeah, right now CBI says it's grown to more than 500 days right now. That's nearly twice what it was before the Missy Woods controversy. They're hoping to get that down eventually to around 90 days per test, but obviously they say they need to get through this backlog before they can make that goal happen.
Yeah, that length of time is just a nightmare for victims, right? All right, Evan Krugel, thank you. So the state legislature has a lot of hot-button social issues to consider this year. Bills focused on gun control, LGBTQ rights, abortion. Today, senators spent hours debating a somewhat less sexy but still very impactful issue, rewriting a decades-old standard for labor organizing. Sponsors say the bill would make it easier for unions to organize and collect fees. Federal law allows employees to currently unionize with a simple majority vote, but Democrats want to repeal the Colorado-specific Labor Peace Act, which requires a second vote with a 3/4 majority in order for unions to be allowed to negotiate union security, stuff like collecting certain fees from even non-union employees. The bill's Democratic sponsors, labor advocates, argue that unions in Colorado are required to protect all employees, not just union members, so they should be able to recoup some costs from all employees. Republican critics argue that those payments should be voluntary, or that unions should be required to provide some transparency and accounting about where those dollars go.
Of course, if you want to form a union and protect your rights and wages and have a voice in your workplace, and then you have a second election, hey, would you like this for free? Is that a fair way of representation?
We're more concerned about, I guess, the rights of a union than we are the rights of an employee. We're more concerned about the union than saying that the employee has a right.
Well, perhaps you heard Governor Polis on this program basically saying that he's going to veto the Democrats' bill unless it has the backing of the business community. It's not an empty threat. Polis nixed 3 labor-backed bills last year. A ballot question on pot sales in the Springs is in a nightmare blunt rotation through the court system, all to decide if voters should have to pass it again. You know, it's a question we get every year. When can you file your Colorado tax return? What is the stinking holdup? The state's response is less than clear. And we want to show you an innovative mental health model in Aurora that literally creates a space for young people to get the help they need. Colorado Springs' desperate effort to undo voters' legalization of recreational pot ran into another roadblock today. Within the hour, district judge ruled the city cannot force voters to vote on this again in April. Some of those ballots are supposed to hit the mail tomorrow. Let me give you the Cliff Notes version on this. So in November, voters in Colorado Springs overturned a decade-old prohibition on recreational marijuana sales in the city. Ever since, conservatives on city council have been fighting to put the initiative on the ballot again in April to repeal it. They claim that voters must have been confused the first time. The updates on this week have just been dizzying. I mean, if only there was a natural, non-pharmaceutical remedy for vertigo. But anyway, on Monday, a judge in El Paso County blocked the repeal effort from the ballot. Next day, same judge paused the decision as Colorado Springs went to the state Supreme Court on it. Today, the state Supreme Court passed. District Court just ruled again the city needs to make sure the ballot question does not appear on the ballot so voters are not more confused. Basically, they've just said the city has to wait until a further election to do it. We reached out to the folks in the Springs to see whether they're going to keep fighting this legally or they're going to print the ballots without the weed question. Haven't heard back on that. 9 News meteorologist Corey Repenhagen grew up not far from there, right, Corey? Right? Outside the Springs?
Manitou Springs area.
Could growing up, Corey, imagine a world in which Springs voters vote for legal weed?
No, I could not imagine that, but I can imagine that they are confused over the issue. It is a bit of an issue always down there, and they're always the last ones. Here's the big story here in the weather, though, is a major winter storm moving in. We have not seen numbers like this in a 48-hour forecast in a long time. Some of our mountain passes and our ski areas could get 2 to 3 feet of snow by Sunday morning. This will be over by Saturday night. We could see a little bit of potential here tomorrow night to get a wave of rain and snow showers through the area between 6 o'clock and midnight. It looks like it's going to be pretty fast moving, kind of favoring the south and east of Denver, but there is some potential at least. So 0 to 2 inches will be the potential here across the Front Range, maybe 1 to 5 in parts of the higher foothills. But once we get into the mountains, we're looking at good stuff here. 4 to 8 inches in Summit County's mountain towns there. Big numbers in Aspen and also in Steamboat Springs. And they are breathing a huge sigh of relief here in southwest Colorado, where we can get 15 to 20 in Telluride. And the modeling's come down a little bit, but I'm keeping with 5 to 10 inches down there in Durango and Pagosa Springs. Looking pretty good. I hope that turns out for you because they really need some good stuff down there. You haven't seen a storm like that down in southwest Colorado since November, so they've been hurting for it. Here's the 7-day forecast here in Denver. We do have some potential in there for those 2 waves of snow coming on Friday and then 1 more little wave on Saturday night. We'll be dry on Sunday, but a little chilly before our next storm system comes in here Monday night, where we could get a little bit of snow by Tuesday morning. Kyle?
Tonight's next question comes from Julie and Dave in Ridgeway, who want to know when Colorado will start accepting 2024 tax returns. What is the holdup, they asked us, writing in a bunch of us already have federal returns in the bank already.
So we get this question every year around tax time because people will file their federal returns as soon as the IRS starts accepting them, and this year that was January 20th. Then their Colorado returns get stuck as pending or not accepted because weeks later, Colorado's online tax portal is still closed. If you go to Colorado's Department of Revenue website and try to file your state taxes, you'll see what says check back in early February. It is February 13th. I checked on my New York Times recipe of the day calendar that Kim Christensen bought me. It is the 13th of February. We asked the Department of Revenue when the portal will open and the reason for the holdup. They told us, quote, "We have nothing to announce at the moment." All right. The department says there's no statutory requirement of when they have to start accepting your tax returns. They aim for some time between MLK Day and early February. Again, friends, recipe calendar says it's the 13th. For reference, the state started processing returns last year on February 12th. Year before was February 10th. So maybe soon? Send us your next question. Anything you're wondering about Colorado, because you can't be the only one with that question. We welcome written questions, video questions, audio questions. Be on TV with me. It's fun. Email next@9news.com or text next at 303-871-1491. A community leader known as the Cowboy Chancellor, remembered today in the building that bears his name.
Right now, it's like a needle in a mile-high haystack to find a Black or a Latino male provider.
Healthcare experts in Aurora, meeting kids where they are with counselors who look like them. And hey, a reminder, you can catch Next streaming each night at 6 p.m. on 9 News Plus. And Next is also a podcast, wherever you find those. Dan Richie's friends, colleagues, and members of the community gathered today to honor the life of the University of Denver's former chancellor, the philanthropist and education champion nicknamed the Cowboy Chancellor of DU. He died in January at the age of 93. A celebration of life at the Richie Center. Speakers described his deep love for Colorado, where he grew his successful business career and led Westinghouse Broadcasting. He became chancellor at DU in 1989, donated millions of dollars of his own money to the university. He was a leader in the community, the CEO of the Denver Center for the Performing Arts, and president of the Temple Hoyne-Buell Foundation. He's remembered for living by a code of ethics, cowboy code that valued courage, kindness, and fairness.
In losing Dan, we've lost a statesman, a leader, a visionary, but his work leaves us so much to cherish and inspire us to double down, to finish and complete the visions that he laid out.
After Dan Richie left the chancellor's office in 2005, he stayed connected with his beloved university, serving as an honorary life trustee at DU. Barbershop, boxing ring, gym, recording studio, places to receive mental health care. An organization in Aurora says those happen to be the perfect settings for at-risk kids and young adults to connect with mental health therapy.
We have a barbershop, boxing ring, music studio, and the fitness gym is really the spaces where emotions come out just organically. So I'm Daniel Sampson. I'm the founder and CEO of DBOA, Driven by Our Ambitions. So DBOA focuses on system-impacted youth. When I say system-impacted youth, we mean youth that are involved in the youth justice system. They come in here, just start lifting some weights. We start having a discussion, what happened at home, what happened at school, and literally sit down on two benches and have that dialogue. Looking at mental health in the traditional lens makes it so that it could be considered as a stigma. I feel, though, that a lot of the young folks I serve and the men I encounter, we use our backdrops to really release and cope with what we're going through. The avenue that hasn't been using those backdrops is actually just bringing a licensed professional into their domain. And so they don't have to feel forced to open up and share. Right when you sit in these chairs or you get in this environment, it just comes naturally to you to be your authentic self and open up. It's not like you haven't seen a boxing ring or a barbershop or a weight room or even a gaming lab for youth. It's just more, hey, let's bring now the licensed professionals and make it a norm to embrace counseling and therapy in these spaces as well.
I like it. That's innovative. That's cool. Here comes Marilyn with the feedback. Oh, and the 9 News sweatshirt. Look at this. There's merch, people. There's merch. Not available to the public. Feedback next. Feedback by text tonight, who says, at 65 years young, it warmed my heart to hear Kyle Clark use the term Cliff Notes tonight. Okay, so our producer Mallory specifically tells me it is Cliff's Notes. I was too young to use them. She's younger than I am. She swears that she used them, but online. Anyway, Cliff's Notes. Red wrote in asking U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi to investigate 9 News, saying, time to question if this news agency is receiving kickbacks. Red, speaking of Cliff's Notes, you really think that a news anchor getting kickbacks would dress like an unemployed English professor?